What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday. We are at the end of a week again. Don't mind me wearing glasses. They're blue light blocking glasses. So I've been getting a lot of headaches lately staring at the screen and being in a store. So this is helping a lot. Don't mind them. Anyways, more importantly than that, I have my really good friend Danyka here with me on the show again. She's been on before. I think this is actually maybe her third time. Maybe. It's definitely her second time. And we've done a few other things together, so that's probably why I'm scrambling up. She is actually the person who introduced me to the carbon benefits of hemp. She just completely and utterly opened a new door inside of my brain. Like, I guess more of like a rabbit hole because that was probably 9 months ago and I haven't stopped researching it. And it became like one of my main missions. So, she's a hemp grower too. She's been growing at a way bigger scale than I'm growing, so she could talk about that at length. She's very, very, very intelligent and knows her shit. One of my favorite people, honestly, to talk to. So, without further ado, let's play this theme music and let's get into it. Make sure y'all share it with your friends, and let's freaking go. If I could find the theme music. Where are you? There you are.
What am I doing? Created a movement, won't ruin what you are pursuing. But I wake up every morning, never yawning, cause I wake up with the intent to make the day my bitch. And I don't need it, you talking, so just shut your lips. Cause I'ma make it, yeah, I'ma make it, I'ma make it, I'ma make it. Lord have mercy, I'ma make it. I wake up with the intent to make the day my bitch. And I don't need it, you talking, so just shut your lips. I'ma make it. Yeah, I'ma make it, I'ma make it, I'ma make it. Lord have mercy, I'ma make it. This shit is crazy, right? This shit is crazy.
This shit is crazy, right? It's been way too long since we talked. We got to catch up a tiny bit before the show, but I'm excited to get into it. I asked you how you were before the show, and you said you're good.
Yes.
But how's this year been for you? Like I feel like when I talk to a lot of my friends, 2021 has been a crazy year of growth for people.
Yes. I mean, short answer, it's been tumultuous. And as you know what I mean, as farmers, we all know that, and we know kind of what we're getting into on that one. But in Southern Ontario, it was exponentially more stressful, and for every crop, not just specifically hemp. So it was a lot of touch and go. And as I was mentioning to you, kind of halfway through the season, we did switch custom farming. So we use a company now, Cedar Pond Organics. And I think that my biggest piece of advice is if you don't have all of your equipment, definitely align yourself with somebody who does and who knows what they're doing with that, because that is kind of what it comes down to when you're thinking about, the moisture in the soil and all of that good stuff. Long, short answer. It was interesting. How was your season? Especially because you're south of the border, so I'm always interested.
My season was definitely interesting. It was up and down, as every season can kind of be. And I mean, a lot of people know that watch and listen to this, but like we had complete crop failure essentially. I planted late in August because we didn't have funding, and the NFT project funded it, but late. It was like a late season Hail Mary that actually worked, and people loved it, and it's still working. So, that's one of the craziest things ever is how successful that's been. But we'll definitely get more into that. Essentially what happened is I planted 25 to 30,000 seeds on 1 acre, so super heavy, because I'm trying to get that carbon sequestering.
Yeah.
And I planted August 18th. I'd say between 100 and 200 popped up, and they probably got this big and started flowering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have a lot of mysteries to this year, actually. When I planted, we got a shit ton of rain and we had a little bit of a rain erosion. So I don't know if it's even possible, but I think, some of the seeds had to have gotten washed away, I would imagine, which is very scary because they def
Yeah.
they definitely went onto the street or onto somebody else's property. So,
I
um
mean, it's not going to do any damage. It's just that's more so like a farmer oy vey that's annoying.
it is very, 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 very annoying. It's, one of those things where it's like, I don't know enough to definitively answer this, but is it, like, possible that they just went dormant? Like, are plants smart enough to be like, "Oh, you planted me too late. I'm not gonna grow because I don't think it's gonna work."
Yes. And that's, yes, absolutely, because that's actually a huge issue that we're seeing with when it's industrial hemp and we are looking at, what we're growing for CBD versus industrial. The plant is smart enough to protect itself. And that's usually what happens, is why you're seeing more THC yielded when it gets to that point where it stops producing CBD and it goes into THC mode. So yes, I would definitely agree. The plant is smart enough to know when to let that go.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel better 'cause it makes me feel like so another thing that happened that was really important this year is that, we made the switch from traditional farming to regenerative farming,
Yes.
which aren't you the one who told me about Kiss the Ground too?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so way to, like,
A lot of
completely and
people,
utterly shake my fucking world up this year, Danyka, in the best way possible.
you are so, so welcome. And I appreciate that you listen, because a lot of people were like, we were talking about farmers, like just being like very, very set and like, this is what works. This is tried and true. So it's
Mhm.
really cool to like be able to align ourselves with other like innovators and being like, well, like we're going to kiss the ground and we're going to figure out like what works and like the different alternatives. So yeah, I'm really glad that you that you listened, because I was like, most people think I'm a little, they're like, okay, we're sick of it.
I don't know if I told you this, but I cried when I watched that.
What? That's
I
so
literally, like, bawled my eyes out towards the end because I was just like, "Oh my god," like, it felt like everything in my life, you know how, like, at the end of a movie when somebody has a realization and they have, like, all these memories playing of how they got there, and
yeah.
I'm just, like, thinking about, like, okay, I'm the son of a head grower that's been at this a head grower since I was, like, 4 or 5 years old. He taught me how to plug trays when I was 6 or 7. He, like, brainwashed all of these plants into me and the importance of taking care of the earth, and then I get heavily involved into cannabis, and then I get involved into hemp because of my love for cannabis,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden, I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, "Wait a second. Whoa." Like, I was like, "Okay."
And I really do love that you that's so powerful, because I love that you did watch it, because I sent it to a lot of like people that were like minded. And people always say, "Oh, I'll watch that film, like it's on the list." And I was like, "No, no, like this is something that you seriously have to watch." And like, regardless of what you crop, it's really like, I mean, we're talking like climate change, and it's very, very real. So yeah, that's really cool. And you haven't stopped. That's something that I definitely want your viewers to know, is like that was, we had like probably like a few couple hour conversations, like fell down the rabbit hole, and then you
Mhm.
went and you did it. So kudos to you. That's amazing.
It's definitely been an interesting journey because it's like last year was a little weird for me because I've been saying for like 6 years, like, "Millionaire by 30, millionaire by 30." And I knew, like, when I got there and if it didn't happen, I'd feel a little weird, and I did for a little
Mhm.
bit. And so it just felt like life didn't allow me to do that because it wasn't fully aligned in what I needed to do, essentially. Like, yeah, I help people with my CBD. I really do. It helps a lot of people. But it is minuscule in comparison to what we can do with the environment with hemp. Like, literally like a grain of sand at the beach, you know?
Well, but at the same point, like I'm like, not to, you know what I mean, mitigate that, because that's how I got into the industry. my background, like we've talked about this before, my background was not cannabis. Actually, I had companies approach me, and because there was still a stigma, I had to turn it down because I was working with big conglomerate, PR company, whatever. That being said, when I took on the director of marketing role for a CBD startup, I was like, okay, CBD, this is helping. And it was, oh my gosh, the margins were ridiculous at that point, which from a corporate standpoint, fine, that's great. From a medicinal standpoint, that's really sad that people that truly needed it couldn't afford. It was, I believe, like $180 Canadian a tincture. That's like, it was silly. So I was like, okay, tell me more about CBD. Tell me more. And then I was like, okay, well, light bulb. I have a farm. And then I was like, all right, well, tell me more about hemp. Tell me more about all of this good stuff. So like we both always talk about, we fall down that rabbit hole. And I still love CBD. I still think that it's important, but I also do think that that was a huge lucrative trend where people didn't even, there was no like regulation, there was no like knowledge of it prior. When you're farming, and regardless of the crop, but obviously we're speaking about hemp, you know what's in your soil. You know what genetic you've planted. That's your baby, it's your crop.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's why I gravitated more to that, because I was like, okay, like I seriously know what exactly is going on in this. So should you sell your crop to be, for CBD or industrial or whatever, you have a very strong idea of what that will end up being. So I love that our industry has progressed in that way.
Yeah. It's crazy because I still see people that are selling, a 500 milligram item for $80. And I'm like, I've called some people out, actually. I've ruffled a few feathers this year. Like I really have, because I've been just challenging a lot of people on everything. Like I saw somebody selling a 500 milligram tincture for $75 locally. And I said, why? Why do you do that? The ingredients are the same exact ingredients as mine, except it's grown in Colorado. Mine is grown in your backyard. Like we're in the same state. Come on, like let's support local. Like I understand that's a local
Yeah,
business for there, but come on. And cut your costs. Like if like
yeah.
your retail, what you're paying for your wholesale cost is probably what I'm selling it for retail. Like so. And they're
Mm.
like, oh, our customers didn't like your packaging. And I said, oh, what did they not like about your packaging? And then she got angry because it was just a fake excuse, because she was mad I called her out on literally extorting people that need help and pain.
Well, and that's the other thing. And like to kind of like pivot into that, I do call out the government and what they're up to with agriculture and what grants are available, and especially with CBD, because that should be subsidized. And I've said that. And then we can even go further into the industrial hemp packaging, right? Where that would help create a stronger infrastructure for processors and for everybody that's trying to utilize all parts of the plant. And the fact that CBD is still so, I don't want to say unattainable, but you know what I mean? For an 80-year-old woman who's retired living off of a pension, yeah, that's probably unattainable to have the proper dosage of, $80 US per ting. Like, it's sad.
It's very sad because, like, I mean, realistically, as somebody who's had thousands of customers at this point, 500 milligram isn't enough for most people. So,
Yeah.
they're selling their 1,000 milligram for probably 150. Meanwhile, mine is 60.
And
Like I'm like,
and not to mention, in my experience, I found some retailers, not naming names, have kind of sold it as this miracle drug. Like, oh, and I hate even using the word drug, but oh, you can buy this tincture for $180 and like it does XYZ. They're not wrong. It does all of those good things, but they're not explaining that you have to build that up in your body, right? It's like
yep.
it's a whole, you can't, like, it's not like a wonder drop. I wish it was, but that's not the case. So then when they spend $180 and they're like, oh wait, I have to spend this every week.
Most people can't do it. And then they can't. It's like we're doing the same thing that we were fighting against, right? Like weren't I feel like before the pandemic, the cannabis industry was very, maybe not anti big pharma, but very like, wow, big pharma has fucked up a lot, and they're just giving people a pill for an ill. And they're not actually trying to cure people at all. And they don't even like to use that word because it's like
Yeah.
offensive to them. Um, now I feel like everybody just kind of was like, big pharma's good, let's trust them. It just like made this weird flip, and it's like maybe that's why the behavior in some of the market is the way it is, but it seems like some of these people running the businesses are running it the same way big pharma is, where we know as hemp growers that our margin and costs are low, very low, lower than they've ever been.
Mm.
So it's like they just know they can capitalize and extort people essentially. And it's really fucked up. And our government does it so much. And like they make you jump through hoops. Like for our hemp program, it used to be you had to I don't even know if you had to do a background check. I don't even
Mm.
know the first year we did it. Like we had to fill out the form, make a map of where we're growing and what strains we're growing. And then the next year it was pretty similar to that. This year they they didn't take on the USDA rules, but they added the FSA, which is like a branch of the USDA,
Mhm.
into the process in order to stay compliant in the program. So it's just all ass backwards. So they added this extra step where I got to call the FSA, register my crop, and get my FSA number, get my plot map from them, and send it all over. And I'm like, for what? Like, for what? Just
I
if you're
mean,
gonna do this, Massachusetts is one of the only states that I literally, because I'm a resident of Massachusetts, I can't even get a USDA license.
wait, why?
I think it's like Massachusetts and like 2 other states, you're not allowed to have your USDA license if you live there.
Interesting.
And they don't respect the USDA license. So like somebody that has a USDA license can't just come to Massachusetts and grow. They have to get a Massachusetts hemp license.
Wow.
Ass backwards, right?
Well, I mean, it's you guys are state to state though. So like your regulations and your legislations are there's no synchronicity on that one.
Right.
Like let's say that. Because for us, we like in Canada, we obviously go through Health Canada. And we require the kind of same, we definitely need to give all the information, like notice of cultivation, what our genetics were, what our COAs were, all of that good stuff. And, they spin it in a way that it's because it's for R&D, for, what we're up to. And it helps give like the status quo for each year. And especially because which actually this does shock me because we've been able to grow industrial hemp since 1998.
Mm-hmm.
But once we legalized cannabis, that kind of became a whole new ball game, and the government didn't quite know how to monitor this and quantify it to have like precedent set. So now everybody's required to say exactly what that is through a program called CTLS. Easy enough, it's online, but it's still heavily being monitored. And what Health Canada did this previous season, it was about 3 weeks before, because in Canada, if you don't do your notice of cultivation before the 11th, you don't get crop insurance. It's a whole thing. I think it was the 10th or the 9th. Like, don't kill me, Health Canada. They released 11 new cultivars. It takes like a moment to like properly research each cultivar and know if that's viable with your soil and if that so it was like, wow. And now there's all these new fun higher yielding CBD that are like totally legal under Health Canada, and we have a day to decide. And where are we getting those?
A
So
day.
like Yeah, just to circle back, the government wants to capitalize on this, but they're just making it really difficult for all of us. Whether it's, THC or industrial hemp or even just general agriculture lately in the past couple of years, I would say. Lots of red tape, but
That's probably the reason why, like 2019, there was 120 farmers in Massachusetts that were growing hemp.
Mhm.
120. In 2020, I believe it was 40. And then this year, it's like lower than that.
Mhm.
It's insanity because they've created all this red tape, which essentially pushes out people that can't make money on it right away, which farmers, if they're switching from other subsidies, they need to make money right away from it. A lot of them don't know how to grow hemp. They thought it would be just like corn or wheat, and then they have complete crop failure and they're devastated. Some of them don't know how to harvest it, and properly dry it and all those things too. They would grow 50 acres of hemp and then they didn't have even, a building to dry it in.
And you know what? No judgment on that, because when I converted that, I wouldn't say naive. I was just like, we're going to figure this out. But I was in a position to do that. So I'm not judging anybody who like really, really, truly tries. But I would never encourage that for somebody at this point who's counting on that to be lucrative or, to be their bread and butter. If you're not in a position to do that, no, like make sure you have contracts, make sure you have infrastructure, make sure like definitely like sit twice and think about that.
Yeah, it's something that I completely sympathize with because my first season, luckily, we only grew a tenth of an acre. So it was
Mhm.
like a 110 by 44-foot space. So it wasn't that
Mhm.
big. We got to the end of the season and we're looking at these plants like, these aren't going to fit in your basement. Like, this isn't, if we stacked your whole basement with these, it's not going to fit. So like last minute, we luckily, like, one of my friends had a friend who owned a 1,000,000 square foot warehouse,
Oh, you
and
got the
he let us use a big ass room, like a huge room. I probably could have fit 2 acres in that one room. And there was another room attached that I probably could have fit 1,000 acres worth of CBD drying in. And he just let us use it for free.
That's, you know what, that's incredible, and you got very lucky on that one.
Very, 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 very lucky.
My first crop, and you and I have discussed this, it was the 50 acres because everyone's like, oh, do 1 acre. And I was like, what difference does it make if it's 1 or 50? Like, it's a test crop. But I yielded 93,000 kilos. So when I had the first truck come, they were like, oh, I have to send more. And I was like, yeah, like, they're like, I'm telling you, hemp will grow. But each, like to your point, each crop is different, and it is not for the faint of heart. Like this past crop, it wasn't dense enough. And I don't know if are you familiar with pig's weed? Have we talked about this?
No, what's pig's weed?
Ooh, okay. So all my sweet hemp farmers, you truly need to know about this. It is a weed that replicates whatever it grows beside, essentially. Long story. So coming out, because my plants weren't planted dense enough in rows, this pig's weed was coming out and it was replicating hemp. So if you look at it, you would think, oh, I'm going to combine or I'm going to harvest this or whatever it is. No, it is absolutely not. So I first saw that last season and I was like, okay, what do I do about this? And when I was in Tennessee and visiting the hemp farms there, and we're talking like veteran farmers who get 3 seasons because of their climate.
Weather. Yeah.
We're not mad at that. Good for them. But I was asking because I saw it in one of the fields, and he was like, "Oh, that's pig's weed. It's actually the worst." And I was like, "So what do you do?" And he was like, "You hand rogue it." So like that's the only thing, you can't go and like harvest that. So you go and you pull it out like a farmer by hand.
I would get like a scythe and
No, but you wanted to get it by the root,
True.
right?
Yeah,
But
with
to
weeds.
avoid that, because hemp is also a dominant plant, as we know, to avoid that, just plant denser. So that's just my sweet free piece of advice for anybody who's planning to ever grow.
Yeah, next year I plan it. Well, it depends. I have two situations that are going to happen next year. Either A, I'm going to go back to the farm in April. That's definitely going to happen, and I'm going to lime one more time because I did soil test and found out that my pH was too acidic. It was at like 5.0 pH, where it should be at like 6.2, 6.4 in that range. Um, so I've already limed twice. My field went from, after getting tilled and everything, just barren soil to, not really an inch of dirt showing. So, I didn't have success with the hemp, but I planted some winter rye. I was, like you were saying, I was going through my acre and I was pulling out not it's not hogweed. It's some other kind of weed that gets like these big spikes on them and it's really invasive.
Mm.
Um I, it's gonna bother me now that I can't remember the name. I'm trying to look for my app because I have an app to identify plants.
Oh, that's
And
so smart.
yeah, like, cause I don't know, I can't know everything, it's, like, impossible, so I'm like, "This plant doesn't seem right, like, there's something about this plant that seems off," and then I look into it and I'm like, "Ah, there we go. That's why."
There you go.
Did I delete the app? I must have,
Wait,
dang.
which genetic did you plant?
So this year I planted, auto flower, a strain called Willema. And I planted cherry wine. So my thought behind cherry wine was because I'm growing industrial, I wanted something really hardy, and those are Maine genetics. I know that they get a little bit of a tougher season than we do. So I knew that they were already used to a harsher climate than we have. We're a little bit warmer than Maine. Um, and they're used to our zone of growing. So I think that they would have more success, or that was my thought. I was planting with a row seeder, so you push and it just drops and it covers it over. And I planted the whole field that way, and then I had too many seeds left over. I was like, wait, there's no way I planted what I wanted to, and I just started taking handfuls and just
Oh my gosh.
just throwing them out in the field, and then kind of like raking over everything and making sure it's good. So I don't know, that this is the thing, is like, you told me they can go dormant. Could they have also died because the pH was too acidic?
I I would look into that, and I will definitely contact. I have the best soil guy. He like he's an OG farmer and he knows all about that. Like if I have a question and I don't know, I always reach out to him. I will definitely ask about that, but it would be my opinion no, because I've had genetics that I've planted and they've just had like spills from like the cedar, or they're just being residual from harvest, and then it's grown a hybrid genetic that I've had tested at the labs, and they're like, we don't even know what this is because you made it. So, but then Health Canada definitely wants to know about that, which isn't bad. Like that's science, right? Like we're learning, and um, no, I'm like emotionally invested in your seeds, and I'm going to look into this with like all of my sweet seed people.
Yeah,
Isn't it
it
mad?
was the
I'm
most
super
interesting thing
excited.
that happened this season for sure, because I could go there. I'm gonna go there in April and lime one more time, and then I'm gonna start going back in May to prep the land
Mhm.
and get my irrigation all set up and whatnot. If I go back in May, there's a big chance that I'm gonna go back to thousands of plants just sprouted up. Not big, just starting to get to sprout up. But
Yeah.
that could happen.
Are
Or
you going to do the same genetic?
what's that?
Are you going to do the same genetic?
I am. Yeah, I have a bunch of seeds still left over.
Sweet.
And with the funding kind of being limited, we're trying to sell out the rest of the tokens so that way we can hopefully buy a little tractor, because
Ooh, yes.
it's really nice to have a little tractor, like a little John Deere one.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So on my list was a combine, and I've been gunning for a combine. So the custom farming company that I've now started working with, I was so shocked because he was like, "Hey, like, yeah, like, I'm gonna store it there," and I was like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense because I'll need it frequently, yay." And I like didn't really think much of it because, as you know, a lot of people are like lofty ambitions. This is, and we all want to do everything in the industry, which is not bad, but it takes time sometimes. 2 days later, he shows up with this giant, massive red combine, which I then fell off of. Fun fact.
Oh shit.
Just be very careful on combines. But that will be helpful. And the thing is, though, I don't think a lot of new age farmers understand how expensive and delicate that equipment is.
Mm-hmm.
And, but ultimately, how useful it is, clearly.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to get to. I also want to get a shucker, and so that way, like while I'm in the field, I can kind of shuck it off, and then any CBD flower that I have, I don't know, it really, if I'll ever, sell it for CBD ever again, because realistically, if I can grow regular seed and let them seed out on their own, it's less work that I have to do every year and better genetics because now it's getting used to my zone because they're winterizing.
I see what you're saying on that one, but honestly, you could do all of it
True.
based on what you could use. Like, and that's why I love the plants so much. You would be able to use the heads for CBD and still get that and have like a processing facility that can, all that good stuff. In addition to, the herd, and you should get a decorticator. And that's what I
That's
want
the
for,
other thing I want.
yes, that's what I wanted for Hanukkah.
I
So
also this company that I've been looking into, Hempitexture, they sell the hoppers for hempcrete.
yes.
So I really want to get one of those too because everybody's like, you can't do hempcrete at scale, and I'm like, bet, let's try.
Yeah, put my name on that bet. Yeah, that's the other thing. Hempcrete is like a whole other point of sequestering, like we talk about all the time, right? And so it's really cool, and I know that this will fascinate you. Utilizing all the plant, just devil's advocate, assuming that you chop the top off, you then can use all of that biomass for hempcrete. So it's still multi-purpose. And I know that you're kind of close to the Canadian border, so you get cold weather. You can still use all of that material for biomass for hempcrete after it freezes.
Oh wow. So you just
That's
leave it
exciting.
there over the winter?
John, I wouldn't leave it there, but I'm just saying, like, if you get like nervous about it getting, because if you're like harvesting for like something, definitely not CBD at that point, but it's something else, then you would be very concerned. But the biomass and the herd is still viable to be able to chuck through and make hempcrete.
That is really good to know. Because that was one of the things I was like, okay, do I need to let this dry? Like, can I field dry it before I use it for like the herd and everything? And then, I mean, the other thing that, people have kind of doubted me on is, um, and one of the things my partner gets stuck up on, he says, um, we're not growing industrial hemp. This is an issue, Adam. And I'm like, Eric, hey, what kind of license do we have? He said, huh? I said, we have an industrial hemp growing license. We grow industrial hemp. It's just a fancy term they put onto hemp. I said, it doesn't make sense that there is one genetic of hemp that is grown for fiber and one genetic of hemp that's grown for CBD. It's the same freaking plant and it's based on how you grow it. So if you grow it really close to each other and don't allow it to get big and bushy, it's not going to get as much of that thick coating around the herd. Like people, that's what the issue is. People are like, oh, when you grow for CBD, it has like bark on it, and then you got to get through that bark to get to the herd. But if you grow it thinner, you have less of a chance of that happening, and it's the same thing, and you'll get CBD buds and everything too.
I mean, I agree, but it always comes back to the genetic, because there is some genetics that you wouldn't grow for CBD, right?
Right.
Like, and here's what frustrates me, and that's why, like, when we talk about global integration and why it's such a huge thing for my company, Canada Collective, to be focused on, is like what you are currently legally able to grow, like cherry wine, like you mentioned, that yields, I believe, approximately like 23 to 26 CBD percentage, correct?
It's up there. Yeah, it's definitely up
Yeah.
there.
So the highest that we're able to do under our industrial license, highest that I've seen currently is 11%. And that's pending that you have the best season and the best crop, and the stars align and you have all of that
Yeah.
mother nature on your team. But otherwise, yeah, like there's a huge fluctuation. So I think it's frustrating that we can't share seeds, because we probably have seeds in Canada that would do better in your climate and your terrain. Like I've said this since I started, but we're still waiting
Yeah,
for the government. We'll
it's
wait for the
it's silly
government.
because, like, do they do that with farmers' pumpkin seeds or corn seeds?
Thank
Like,
you. Thank you. I mean, there obviously is like a standard, but no, they're super not going around and double, triple checking where did you get your seeds? No, they just call them pumpkin seeds.
yep.
Mine are just hemp seeds.
That'll be nice with what you're saying of like the globalization of hemp to just
Yes,
like normalize it and make it what it is, which is just an agricultural commodity. That's all it
yeah,
is. It just needs
absolutely.
to be treated like that.
It's the same thing that when any new regulation or point of legislation is implemented. So that even just call it politics. If the government doesn't know exactly what to do with it, they're kind of like filibustering it, to be honest. Like they're like, okay, we're going to let this see what it does, but we're going to figure out how to make money along the way. Because even, crop insurance for hemp, it's really difficult to find because there's no solid precedent set on that.
Yeah, I don't even think we have that here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I I know for a fact it wasn't in 2019, and
It wasn't for
I
us in 2019 either. Hold
I
on, I'm
paid
gonna.
pretty close attention to it, and I haven't seen anything change on that. Although the one major thing that did change, and it was like one of the major platforms I was fighting for, was in Massachusetts, they weren't allowing farmers that were growing on protected land to grow hemp. So they could grow any other agricultural commodity they wanted, but they couldn't grow hemp on protected land.
Interesting.
So I fought really hard for that. Like I went to Farmers Bureau meetings and called the Senate and the House and just like blowing them up. I made people super aware of it, and then a couple groups took it and ran with it. And now that has changed, and they can grow hemp on protected land. So
That is
it's
incredible. I love that.
it's goes
And
to
it
show you
means
that
that
you can make moves on the small state side. Like maybe not on the U.S. side, but like on your state,
well,
you might be able to make some
any
changes.
move is a move, right? And especially with our industry. And it's like I used to say like we're on the precipice of the green rush. And that was like pertaining to, CBD and THC and just, changing that stigma. But as it grew, I'm like, we're now on the precipice of a green, like sustainable living rush. And that is what I feel honestly is what's going to open up global doors,
Mm,
because that like and now people are paying attention to climate change, and people that wouldn't typically, even if it is driven by consumer demand, we're seeing massive companies start to pay attention to that and change their CSR mandates and Try to do that. But hold on, quick circling back, you should look up green risks. They do crop insurance in the US. Don't know
I
who
got
they are,
them.
but I know them.
I got them Googled. I got it on another tab Googled. I got pig's weed in another tab too, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, damn, some of these pictures, like if I looked quick, I would think that it's just cannabis.
That's exactly the problem.
Wow.
That's yeah, it's a fun it's
So
a
is it
fun
poisonous?
no, it's not poison. It's a weed, but it
Yeah.
replicates what you do not want it to replicate, essentially.
Oh,
I'm sure our
sometimes.
Tennessee friends could do much better justice to that explanation, but I just like if your plants aren't that dense, it gives it space to grow up like exactly like a weed.
Sometimes it's called skunk weed, apparently too.
Yes. But
Huh.
it's not like it's not fragrant in any way. It's just super annoying as a farmer.
That's very interesting. I'm trying to think of what the.
You don't want to think about it too much. You do not want it.
I feel like I've seen this plant.
Oh, you for sure have. It's a common. It's all that good stuff, but not really conducive to like an easy harvest. But let's be
Mm,
real, no harvest is particularly easy.
no, it's not. Even when, like 2019, everything went right for us. We got perfect weather. It was
Mm,
getting rain like every other week, really, really good soaking. So like we were only watering every other week essentially, and once a week because I don't really water a lot. That's always kind of been my thing. Like I think that people overwater cannabis, so I like to let it not get dry, but be able to get drier and not always be soaked because when it gets soaked, I found that the roots kind of get lazy and the plant doesn't grow as big.
I'm interested.
Um, yeah, that was actually one of the things I discovered from growing indoors. Like everybody has these my old growing partner used to have this like weird feeding schedule where he'd like basically feed every day, and it just was like, dude, that's way too much. Once I started looking into it, like when I used to grow indoors, it's different than outdoors because obviously it doesn't have the moisture retention, but I'd like water Monday, feed Wednesday, water Friday, and that's all I did for my indoor grow. I had it on a set schedule, like this is when you get water. Once in
Mhm.
a while I'd come back, on a Monday once it's been 2 days instead of one, and a couple of the plants would be dry. So I know, okay, on Friday, I got to water those ones a little bit more than the rest of them. And you just kind of account for it. And then you start to notice that the ones that need more water are the ones that have been growing the most and the best. And so it's like, it's like cannabis likes to be dry because it kind of like stresses it out. And the cannabinoids are basically, from what I understand, like a stress response to the plant. So it's trying to like protect itself,
Yeah,
and that is the yumminess that we are looking for,
yeah,
fortunately.
this is true. And you know what? I'm low key a little bit jealous of people that are able to do those small scale amazings because you are able to look at each plant and be super, you know what I mean, super aware of what their growth schedule was. And exactly to your point, like when you grew them, growing large scale hemp, you want to acknowledge each one of the plants, but it's really, really interesting. And like there are certain different pockets of water that it's like, okay, like that
Mm,
got more moisture, obviously, in that side. But I feel like everybody, if you're growing hemp, should get a drone.
yeah. Oh, I thought I lost you for a second. I clicked a button and I was like, oh no. Um, so you told me about the Elon Musk contest. Did you ever register?
I did.
Good, good, good.
I did. And I'm
I'm doing
taking
some.
everybody with me because it's a big contest. And I feel like I love that it is a contest, but I feel like everybody should remember that it doesn't need to be like cuckoo competitive. We
Mm.
all, I think, at this point are, like I said, acknowledging climate change, acknowledging, like, I personally don't have children, but I have the most incredible, nephew and nieces and all of like little bambinos. And I think that I saw actually a meme and it said, we are socially responsible to leave the world in a better place than we found it. So I feel like people should be less competitive about this and be like, hey, like, how can we work together? Because and like anybody who's listening, the last place is like 10 million. Like, where I don't be greedy.
Actually, the
And
grand prize is 30 million, I'm
50,
pretty sure. Yeah,
but
50. And then like second, third, and fourth place get $10 million each. Like what?
and that's incredible. And that's why I think that, don't be greedy. Share your sweet ideas. Like, I'm going to be working on a hemp ecosystem, which is why I'm so excited to have found Cedar Pond Organics, who's able to kind of like implement my vision and make sure that that works. Then you go into like how much, a hemp block can sequester of, CO2. Really fascinating, incredible stuff. So
Well, even more to add on to that, if you look into it, the concrete industry is like the highest CO2 emitting industry.
it's 8% actually.
Hmm. So I was reading a study that
A
said
lot,
if
though.
it's a lot, yeah, because you're talking about, cars and like power plants and then animal
Mhm.
agriculture and all these different things, 8%. I was reading a study that said that the concrete industry, if it were a country, it would be the third largest CO2 emitting country in the world behind the US and China. So it's a major issue. Like, they say a 1 meter square wall of concrete, in order to put that up, it emits 300, I think, kilograms per something per year. That same meter square wall, if it was built in hempcrete, would be negative 110 kilograms per year. Like,
I
it's
don't
incredible.
I don't know 100% about those numbers, but like for instance, if we like 1 hectare of growing hemp, like hemp in the ground, emits 22 tons of CO2. What is incredible about that is you can take that same hemp, you can cut the tops off, use it for CBD or, for biofuel, biomass. You can put it through and it still will then be made into hempcrete rather, and it can still further sequester.
Yep.
It is insane what this plant can do. And I'm really happy that consumerism has shifted. You know what I mean? Like I joke about like farming is getting sexy, but it is. I think, it's really cool that people are starting to pay attention. And it's even the kids, like now they love farming. So it is going to be, I mean, we've had 3 years of this, right? Like since like legalization and the farm bill passed in the US, which that was
Mhm.
incredible. So we've had 3 years. I'm very impressed with our progression so far, and I'm really excited to see what we're all up to.
Me too. Yeah, like I've been talking to a company that does hemp wool. So they do like
That's so cool.
the insulation in the walls and everything instead of being fiberglass, it's hemp. And again, like you're saying, it continues to sequester carbon while it's breathable, it's mold resistant, it's antibacterial, it's pest resistant, it's fireproof. Um and then they also make hemp wood. So, like, the
Mhm.
wood side of things too is kinda where it gets intense. Like, I had a meeting with Eric, and we just kinda were going over, like, "Okay, we need to just dive 100% into carbon because we were, like, talking about phytoremediation and doing this stuff with PFAS and this, that, and the other, and everything kept circling back to carbon. So we
Yeah.
were like, "Let that be our focus. This is our mission. Like, we're gonna help save the planet by sequestering carbon." But it's even deeper than that, right? When you use it for hemp wood, hemp has 4 times as much pulp as trees do.
Mhm.
So it takes a quarter of the amount of hemp that it would to trees, and instead of taking 60 years to maturity, it takes 6 months. So,
Exactly.
like, if you're in a warm climate, you can get 2 or 3 cycles a year. It's like the amount of CO2 that so not only are you continually sequestering it, probably I guess after our studies we'll find out, I think a little bit more than trees would. Trees are a really good carbon sequestering thing, like, when you leave them and they're really full grown and big,
No,
but
and I'm not mad at the trees, but the thing is, like you said, they take so long to come to a like full fruition, whereas we could be doing triple double cycles globally, and especially in different warmer climates, we might be able to get 4.
this is where, like, I get chills thinking about this. Think
I'm so glad that you listened to my hemp talk. Most people are like, "Oh, like that's interesting. Like I'll see it when I see it." And I was like, "Well, like just look into it because it's very much happening."
Yeah, and what's even crazier is there could, if we can get this at global scale, there is an opportunity to eliminate deforestation because
Absolutely.
now, instead of cutting down an acre of trees, you cut down a quarter of that. Or say you were gonna cut down 100 acres, you cut down 25 acres to grow hemp. And Eric was like, "Oh, doesn't that seem backwards? As a company, we're gonna be cutting down trees and da 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 da." And I'm like, "Yes, you have to take that into account. It's gonna be a little bit of a hit at first, but long term, this is
Mhm.
going to be better." And
Yep.
my idea is to buy like 100 acres that would have been used for like wood, like to be cut down and used for lumber, and save that. So 75 acres of it would never get cut down. It would just stay there forever. And I can see how much that sequesters like per acre, and then see how much I'm sequestering on the hemp at the same time, and then like you're saying through all the textiles and everything. And when you think about those kind of numbers, so now I have 75 acres of trees sequestering carbon every year, of full grown trees, and
It's
25
incredible.
acres sequestering hemp. And like, so scale that up. Now we have 1,000 acres, like it, and the same thing.
Honestly, it is incredible. I was crunching numbers, and do not quote me because I'm not huge on the numbers, but on just 16 acres, based on per hectare, all that good stuff, it was 3.8 million
For
CO2.
trees.
No, no, for hemp.
Wow.
Like the numbers are astronomical, and it's just plant them, you know what I mean? Like make sure your soil is good. Like you were mentioning about lime, like know your pH levels. Like that is paramount. And I like hemp will grow, but if you want it to grow well and grow
Thrive.
exactly, then yes, like give it, much like anything else, make sure it has all of the necessary nutrient. So
Yeah, it was comforting because my soil test, everything was in like the 98th percentile. Like it was like high, high,
nice.
high, high, high. Very good. Like the bacteria balance was like perfect already. The NPK was spot on. Um, and it was just the pH. Like they even give you like a score out of 100, and even with the
Yeah.
pH being very low, like I think it only got like a 2 out of 100. Like, it
Oh
was
wow.
very low because it's supposed to be 6.2, so, it's like 25% off, it's really bad, and they're like, "This is what's happening, is you're building your soil, and then it's killing itself because it's acidic in there and the carbon life forms can't survive." So I'm like, "Okay, so now if I fix my pH, all of that's there, because there is clearly a bunch of nutrients to be uptaken by the plants. I just got to
Yes.
balance it in order to get it there." And seeing my field, like I saw a bunch of little baby plants that had seed in them, and I'm just letting them die. But more importantly, when I saw my field was just all green, it was like it was like, oh, we're doing it. So like I just took more soil sample tests, and then I
Yeah.
limed one more time after I took the soil sample tests, obviously. And I've been working with Cornell University. They've been doing our soil sample test.
Nice.
So
That is incredible.
it's like a
Yeah,
verified source, and like especially for Elon's contest, I wanted something that was like official.
yes. And I love that too because that's so that to me is so significant, and I think it's quintessential in what like we're all building is to include, students and studies and, work with universities who kind of have honestly more resources than some of our farms and to be able to like really, you know what I mean?
And if they start seeing the results and everything too, like they're
Yeah.
gonna be like, "What are these guys doing?"
Yeah. I need to know more.
And that's all it takes. Like we've already talked to a professor in the States, and he's like dialed in on hemp for PFAS, the polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's all like the waterproofing and non-stick stuff that's on pans. It's really nasty. But hemp is like hemp. If you take water filled with PFAS and you run it through hemp and carbon and I think diatomaceous earth, you run it through like those three filter mediums, it comes out over 98% clean
That, oh my God, that is insane.
with
Like
like
in
a,
the
like a
best way.
3-minute contact time. It's not a long contact time.
Oh my God. I have to let the pupperoos in. Can you hold on
Yeah,
1 second? Thank
absolutely.
you.
I could stall. I'm good at stalling. But yeah, it's crazy to know that people really don't even know what we're talking about in a sense. People are just starting to learn about sustainability and what it really means because for so long, and some people still do, we were just very wasteful and not very conscious of what we're using in the earth and what our impact is on the earth. And it's nice that we can have public forums to kind of discuss these things because as she said she has nephews, but I have kids. Like when we have those next generations, it's really important that we leave something for them that's healthier than how we were brought into it. And that's what I feel. Like I constantly when I'm like driving down the highway or driving down the street, I see trash. And if I had more time in my day, I would literally stop and just pick up trash because I hate it. I just like I can't stand it. I don't want my kids to see trash all over the place. Just like I don't want my kids to ever see, a time where the earth gets too hot and everything starts dying. And I don't know. There's got to be something that we can do. We haven't been proactive, so now we have to be reactive. And luckily, we have a plant at our disposal that has already been used throughout the world um, for many centuries before it was made illegal. And it was basically made illegal because of the nylon industry, because of the petrol industry, um, and a few other industries. It's like 5 or 6 big ones. And they fought for, reefer madness and all that stuff. And because of that, we stopped growing hemp at scale. Like hemp, y'all, if you live in the US, especially if you like live in Indiana, Connecticut, um, I think like Oregon, a few other states, it really grew heavy, but it grew all over the US. Hemp grew in the wild. And it's on record the USDA literally eradicated hemp from the wild. It's actually like one of my missions in life. I don't have the time for it right now, but in my lifetime, I want to go genetic hunting. So what I mean by that is I want to go to places that were known hemp growing sites and just hope and pray that I could scour miles and miles of forest. I'm gonna have to chart it all out and like figure out everything. It's gonna take a lot of work. I want to make it like a film series eventually, and find wild hemp. Hopefully, I would probably go in September, October, probably October, so I could collect pollen and maybe there'll be stuff seeding out You know what I mean? Although if I went, I guess I could go earlier in the season because I could take clippings. And then with the clippings, I have clones. I could seed out those clones. It does make it a little bit different, but it would make the genetics pretty close. But that's one of my life missions that I don't really talk about much because I I don't even know where to start. I guess I've been trying to find like verified known sites for hemp, and it's not easy. That part of history was really erased, and I'll never. I mean, I guess it was mostly because of money, but we really messed up our world by doing that, honestly. Because when you think about it, how many of y'all know that it was mandatory to grow hemp in the United States at one point? How many of y'all watching right now?
I did.
Because it was, and you could literally go to jail for not growing hemp. It was wild.
In Canada too, a minimum of 1 acre. If you owned a farm, it was mandatory that you grew that. Happy to jump back in. Thanks for stalling. But no, that's really cool that you touched on that because it was a serious thing. And they used a lot of that for livestock. So cutting back to pre-prohibition, all of those good cannabinoids that were naturally in the animals that we were consuming, other than if you were vegetarian, respect on all of those fronts, you were naturally like consuming those cannabinoids.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all the amino acids, and
Yes.
because like hemp is very complex. It's like one of the most protein dense plants. Like it's ridiculous. Like why does it have it has amino acids, it has proteins, it has cannabinoids, it has all terpenes, it has all these things, flavonoids, all these things that really help our body and can work in conjunction with other things that we're taking as well.
Absolutely. It was actually really cool. Like we talked about our crops and it was kind of touch and go. My crop was really beautiful this season. We
Mm.
had a pop-up hemp dinner with he's on Instagram as Stoner Chef Danny Rapuso, who used all of the actual hemp that I grew to make this like amazing 5-course dinner. And it was all just
That's
like naturally from like farm literally to table.
That sounds really cool.
It was really cool. And I love, like to your point, I love that everybody is just getting more educated and the plant is everything.
Yeah, I'm looking at land right now. So like, did you see that I released my NFT project?
I did see that. Mazel tov, that's exciting.
It is. We're in like I like to call it V1 right now. It's
Okay.
just I released what I could on the time crunch I was on, and now I really want to take the time and make V2 something crazy. So like
Very cool.
I'm working on creating 10 different characters for this next drop. It's going to be a 10,000 token drop. Um I was gonna be raising 2 million, but I'm talking to this company about possibly partnering with them, and you could basically what's it called? What's it called like when you get your own McDonald's franchise? You could like franchise your own out, but it costs like 1.5 million dollars, but everything gets built out and like
What is
goes to their
McDonald's? You have
specs.
to have $1 million liquid in your bank account to franchise a McDonald's, FYI.
You have to have a half a million liquid.
1 million.
Oh shit.
In case everyone cared. Yeah, it's great. Like you have to have like yeah, not even like no, you have to be liquid. But
Wow. But so I'm thinking about that, but right now it's set at 2 million that we're trying to raise, and what I want to do with that 2 million is I want to buy between 100 and 200 acres and do exactly my idea. Like keep the trees intact as much as possible. So like ideally if I could find land that's already partially cleared in some spots, that's even freaking better. But I have my plan to keep the trees up strategically and grow hemp,
mhm.
and I want to get the data from that for especially for the Elon contest. But what I want to do with my token is like give people, I don't know if I can give land ownership because that would be very complicated, but something like that, where if you have X amount of tokens, it would probably be like 100 tokens. It'll have to be a lot. Um, you get like a portion of the acre is like yours or something like that. I got to figure out exactly how to legally like do that.
There should be a way under your license, because in Canada, like under my industrial hemp license, I can have site Bs where I sign
Mm.
contracts, and then they can, wherever their land is, but they would operate under my license.
No, I mean like the land that I'm buying would be part of buying the token. So like if you bought
Oh,
100 of my tokens, you get a piece of the land type of thing.
oh, okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I'm like finishing my planning stage where I figure out what exactly I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna reach out to some lawyers and everything and really get their opinion on how to do that. Like, it wouldn't be one token, like, but if you bought, maybe I'll have rare tokens in there for like a decent amount of money because it's I'm buying this land for a lot of money. Um, but maybe like set aside 20 acres that can be owned by other people if you own this token, or like leased to
Do they
them
all have
even.
to be growing hemp or just anything?
See, that's where I was like, oh, but if they own it, then they could do whatever they want with it. I don't want people building on it. Like, we got to have this plan to keep the trees there. So it's like, I think it would be more of like a profit sharing maybe, or like, I don't know. I'm
When
kind of
you
hung
do
up on that.
not when you do a crop share, but then you
That
both but facts, you both then split both the profit but the risk.
mm,
And you also have to think about companion plants, because somebody wants to come out there and grow like a really high sweet THC genetic, and somebody's growing hemp and they're doing industrial, and those males pollinate that crop. You're going to have very salty neighbors, my friend.
yeah, that was the other thought of why I want to keep some of the trees, to be honest. I know it's not perfect, but it'll help to be like a filter essentially, because listen, if you're going to grow outdoors, guys, it's
Take the
nature.
yeah.
It's nature. Like, you could take your plants in at night and stuff. It's not going to help. Like, pollen they say it can travel like 10 miles or some shit like that, but I don't really know if that's true, because the farm I'm on, he was growing a couple plants outside. They got pollinated. He was a little angry about that.
And
Um,
I can understand that, but like you said, you're growing outdoors, so I like make the necessary provisions. But I feel like everybody is kind of uneducated about, like, when you grow industrial hemp, we do need the males. We need them to pollinate our females, and that makes a higher yield for that. So there was a couple farms in my area that claimed it was the hemp, and they are very far away. There was no way, but it's easy to blame when you're growing outdoor.
and cannabis is so complicated too, because like
Mhm.
I know for a fact that all my indoor plants didn't get any pollen on them ever. Like, so why would they get seeds? Oh, like, I fucked up their light pattern. I fucked up this. Like, sometimes you could stress them out and they get seeds on them.
I
Sometimes the
mhm.
weather, like when you're growing outdoors, like the weather can shock them and like put in,
Yes.
like, what happens is they have like this genetic code where they're like, oh fuck, we're gonna die. We need to make seeds, and they create seeds. It's really kind of amazing.
That yeah, it is really amazing. But that is exactly how the plant is supposed to act, like we were speaking before. It's about, it goes into survival mode, right? Like any good species should, but it is definitely touch and go if you don't know what you're doing. And hemp, like I said, hemp is interesting, and like you said, we're kind of reintroducing it because we're like, no, this is a one-stop shop plant. We can do all of the things with it. And if you are smart and know what you're doing and you grow your THC for like far enough, then it won't affect it. Just
Mm.
understand that if you're growing industrial hemp, you need males, and that could potentially, definitely affect your THC yield.
Yep. And on like the other side, there's no scientific data that I can find to back this up. But so we grew the same genetics as this farm, the same exact seeds that we got from the plants and everything, the same exact seeds. And
Right.
basically, we're 40 minutes apart, so pretty much the same climate. And they didn't grow any traditional cannabis, THC. They didn't grow any of that. We did. On the other, like we had our plot, and then across in the
Right.
yard we had a couple of plants. The THC plants didn't. There was one section of it that seeded out, but only because my old partner put colloidal silver on it to make it flower out, so that seed out, so that way the seeds were feminized.
Hold on, sorry. For those of us at home that do not know what that is or why that's relevant, what is that, and why is it supposed to boost the growth?
What, colloidal silver?
Yeah.
No, so colloidal silver is like a way to stress out the plant, essentially. It's like an ultra stressor. So you spray the colloidal silver on there, and the plant kind of freaks out and it starts getting seeds and whatnot. And the seeds are typically feminized.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
it's it's like it's really that easy to like mess with the genetic coding of cannabis. That's why it's been messed with so much. It's hard to find like pure um but yeah, so none of the THC seeded out, right? But almost all of our hemp crop had seeds on it in
Okay.
it. And there was no males. We culled all the males very early. Like it was like they were knee high when we culled them, like they were barely showing that they're males. We just were really good at identifying it. And with two people
Oh,
checking it constantly, it was easy to sift through. So then I talked to this farmer up in Maine, and he's working with a group of 10 farmers. They all grew the same genetics. They all grew with the same nutrients, the same everything. Um, 5 of them were growing cannabis plants, traditional cannabis plants, without unbeknownst to like the guy running it all. 5 of them
oh,
were not. 5 of them had a shitload of seeds and popped hot on THC. That was the other thing. A lot of like a quarter of our crop popped hot on THC because, but the people that grew the same genetics 40 minutes away, theirs did not even close. So
so what was the difference? Yeah.
something about having like the two near each other was like, I don't know, like it's like love is in
Like,
the air.
oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we're like, as hemp goes, we're not angry at that, but so he had you had a better yield than him on that one, on that crop.
Definitely way better yield. Like what did we get? We got over 200 pounds of usable flour, so we probably grew 250 pounds of dry material after harvest and everything,
Wow, that's
off of a tenth of an
impressive.
acre. So it would be like 2,500 pounds if we did an acre. Um, we had our shit down, and with we only had 100 plants, like 105 maybe, something like that. Like it was not a lot of plants. We averaged really good on half the crop, and then the other half wasn't terrible. But like we had 6 rows, and row A, what the first row was a row of clones that we got from this one place.
Oh,
They
nice.
d- they didn't really do well. They were definitely the least yielding. They probably had a quarter pound, half a pound each off of them. And then row B was this OTTO. Um,
Oh, okay. I'm
and
familiar.
I was not a fan. Like the female plant, it looked like almost like a male plant, but just with buds on it. Like it was tall and lanky. There was like giant nodal separation. Like it was ridiculous. That one probably, yielded a half a pound to a pound off each of them. And then we had a cherry wine mixed with AC/DC. We called it Cherry Thunderstruck. Um, we had some of those that were getting 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds on them. Like it was incredible. Like literally, here's
Well,
my
wait,
water
what were
bottle.
they yielding in CBG?
The CBD was like 15%, something like that. And then there was a lot of other minor cannabinoids too.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
Like there were buds that were almost as thick as this.
Wow.
We mainlined them, so like we took them when we planted them, and instead of planting them straight up, we planted them like this, and then
Mm,
we tied them down. So like they, instead of growing up where you have one
mm.
single big nug, what happens is all these side branches start coming up and become other tops. So you end up with like 6 to 10 tops on there.
That is really seriously impressive.
And it gives it like a box structure too, so it makes it so it can handle winds better and inclement
Well,
weather.
I know that you and I know what we're talking about. For everybody listening, explain to that point why that is so significant. That's incredible.
I'd say because typically people, grow the plant straight up. They're probably averaging a quarter to a half a pound a plant if
If
they're
that,
lucky,
yeah,
and I don't know. I think just a little bit of extra care really helps, but I don't know how to do that at scale. That's where I kind of get tripped out because it if we didn't have a perfect season, it would have been a lot of work for just a tenth of an acre.
right.
And there's ways to make it easier. Like that's why I like this acre. I've been at it. This will be my third year next year of growing there, and I'm like I've crop failure 2020 because of planting late in the drought. Basically crop failure this year, but I got the ground moving at least. I got plants growing.
Yeah,
And then next year I'm gonna have all my shit dialed in. I'm planting on time. I'm gonna have my irrigation system all set up so that way, I can have that on a schedule. I could put that on timers and everything. So I'm next year I'm going into it much more prepared than I've been the past couple years because like last year, 2020, when I first grew on this land, it wasn't the plan to grow there. What happened is we had this plot of land. It was like 2.5 acres, so about a hectare, I believe, right? It's like 2.2 acres is a hectare. Um, so it was about a hectare, and they were gonna let us use it for free. And I was
mm,
like, "Well, you don't have to do that. Like, we'll cut you in on some of it." And like, "No, no, no, it's cool. We want to help you." Da 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 da. Da. We go back there again, and I guess like a couple days before we went there, they stripped the topsoil and sold it.
no, oh my god.
So we went there and it's just like they were trying to put a harrow through it and it just like wouldn't even go through it. It was rock hard and you could tell that it wasn't the topsoil, it was the bottom like crust layer and it had been sitting for like a week drying out in the heat. So we were like, we can't grow here. And
Yeah,
we were like, fuck, what do we do? Like we still had the tenth of an acre going and that was like we weren't even paying attention to that hardly because it became easy to us at that point. And we were like, "Fuck, what do we do?" So I talked to one of my friends, and they're like, "Oh, I know this farmer that has a couple acres he wants to lease out." So I went there, and he's like, "How many acres do you think this is?" I was like, "I don't know, 2.5 acres probably." And he's like, "Cool, all right." And he told me the price we're paying for it, and then I measured it and figured out it was only 1 acre. But,
wow.
uh, but we didn't get started there till mid-July of 2020. So that was already too late. We were in the middle of a drought. I didn't set up the irrigation beforehand. I set it up, but just I didn't have it the right way. And I didn't water before I planted, so everything was dry and just all things that maybe I could have avoided if I had ever dealt with a drought before. Now I have, so I've learned. So it's like
Well,
crop
and
failure. I had no plants pop up in 2020, maybe three, literally out of like again 20,000 seeds probably, and It was so heartbreaking, but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep pushing. Next year will be better.
You have to. You see, like, and that's the thing. Like, it is not for the faint of heart. And we can plan. We can plan for everything. We can even plan for poor weather or less
Hmm.
than favorable weather. Mother Nature does not care about our sweet harvest plans. It is something to always be aware of as any farmer, but especially with hemp because we're setting a precedent for a new industry. So it's really hard to kind of gear and gauge what we're up to, and especially doing it on large scale. So that's why I say to anybody who grows up is like, okay, like buckle up because
Hmm.
it's going to be a really fun ride. And as long as like the one day I was going to harvest and it snowed and it was in like, oh my gosh, I want to say early September. And it wasn't a horrible snow, but it just like we can't put a combine in there because we're talking about $1 million equipment.
Yeah,
So if something happens to that, that is a farm like, oh yes. So
it's like a tragedy when that shit happens.
it really is. And that's why like I kind of stumble over my words on that because I understand how stressful it is for everybody. And that's why when people think that it's not like growing an orchid or you know what I mean, doing a veggie garden, which are equally impressive. I love all botany, yay. But when we're talking about when we're talking about large scale, you have to be willing to eat that 50 acres should it happen because it does.
It happens far too often, and it's just
God,
like,
oh no, you guys are worse. So you guys burn crops. That is blasphemous.
yep, that's what they do. When you're over, they make you burn your crop here when you're
And
over
they
on
make you
THC.
watch. It is sad and
Yep.
horrible. I've seen articles about that. My heart breaks for that. Like it's one
Yeah.
thing to like, not have a successful crop because of the weather, but to have a successful crop too successful that you have to burn it.
Not fair because it's so easy to get the THC levels lower. Like, literally all we had to do was cook it in the oven for a little bit, and the THC would convert to CBN, and voila, we're
Exactly.
on. Like, it's that easy. They just have no understanding of it. They because like I went to the seminar before the first it was like March 2019, right before we applied. Actually, no, we had already applied. We were waiting to hear back, and we went to one of the seminars, and I'm sitting there just like. They don't know anything. They don't know anything. And they're just like some of the stuff they're saying, I'm like in my head, I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. Nope,
I
that's
mean,
not right.
it's frustrating because I throw kudos to anybody who's trying to learn, but what is frustrating is when people have a platform that I'm like, no, that's incorrect, and now you're giving the masses who want to get into this false information, and it's just going to set them up for failure.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is. And we got to figure out a way that helps more farmers. And that's where I think carbon comes in, because
Mhm.
not only can these farmers farm for carbon, and maybe we can, implement some more carbon credit type of programs, so farmers maybe can actually fucking make a living. That'd be cool. Um, but
I'm not mad at that.
on top of that, like just implementing hemp into it, it could help make their soil healthier and everything too, because it's sequestering more carbon. Like it's just overall good. And
Yeah, but I mean, like we were speaking about earlier, and I'm sure it'll come up again. Farmers, when they're set in their way, anybody who's set in their way in their career, like we won't even be stereotypical on that, they reject a new alternative, right? Until they see, like, and that's why I've said forever, I'm cool being the guinea pig, like corporate, financially, agriculturally, because I believe in this so much that I'm like, okay, like we'll figure it out because there are going to be like the worst setbacks and it's super stressful. But ultimately, like, the juice is definitely worth the squeeze on this industry. So
Yeah, you got my mind turning about a couple things because now I'm like,
I do this
ooh, like
good story. Now you're gonna fall down the rabbit hole again.
no, it's just it's like organizing thoughts in my head about the NFT project and stuff and like
Oh,
next
good.
steps. Like the farm sharing is really what did it. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
because like I can just grow for and use like some
yeah,
of it for CBD, like and make some money off that, and then use for the herd for everything, and
exactly.
and also make money off that, but in the best way possible, like while we're helping the planet.
Yeah. That's
It's
and
like
I send that free advice to everyone and anyone that will take it because that's why I partnered with that custom farming company because I was like, let's do crop sharing. We both have skin in the game. We can do crop rotation, which is really important to think about. And let's just, like here we grow, and that's what my company's up to. So I implore you to do that.
Have you heard? Because I was just thinking, like, what plants would I grow next to my hemp, or like maybe not next to my hemp, but instead of growing it
Lavender,
there for a second?
lavender, clover, ginseng. There was two others that I was thinking of that are all amazing companion plants and great transitional plants.
Like, my new phone came in.
I was like, I don't know what you're doing.
I was like, I wanted to open it and see it and touch it. I used to be like the biggest phone nerd in the world.
Oh my,
Like
I'm
I
the
worked.
least amount of that.
You what?
Is I'm the least amount of that.
Really? I I have a little bit left over. Like when I get a new phone, I get a little excited, but I used to know like every spec inside and out of all of them. But I was like in sales, but I also like genuinely liked it. And it's weird because now I'm like, they're like kind of not good for you, but whatever.
No, just focus on planting plants.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just plant plants and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I think like one of the places I was looking at actually for land is Puerto Rico.
Interesting terrain.
Yes, very interesting terrain. I
I
haven't
mean,
been there, but looking at the pictures, it looks interesting.
you would have to plant a really strong genetic and you would have to do some very serious companion plants, but I back Puerto Rico. I think that's really cool. I think anywhere
Why do you say that? Because of the rain?
because of the rain and because of the irrigation, because it's like kind of half desert and it's so loamy in its soil that yeah, you would have to do some extra THC, TLC. Oh my gosh, I can't even speak tonight. I went for it. THC, TLC, kind of
I
same.
love it. Yeah, yeah. My THC gives me my TLC.
There you go. Yeah, just like I say to anybody who's growing, just like know it's the same if you were renovating a house. You would need to know the load bearing walls. You would need to know like all of those fundamental things. It's the same way if you're farming on large scale. You need to know exactly what you're working with and how to navigate that.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a process, a huge process, and that's why like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
releasing V2 probably until like at least Q2, Q3 of next year. And even then, we're not buying land till we get the funding, so the land will be even a little bit after that, like so probably 2023. So
Yeah.
it gives me time to really like because I wanna fly out and look at a couple of the plots of land in Puerto Rico because if I can get one employee down there and like have my business set in Puerto Rico where I can have like the plant and everything right there, everything is on the island, then you can get 0% capital gains taxes and everything,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
I mean, I don't
But
really know how your guys' agricultural grants apply, and especially when it comes to hemp, because it's like super new for like under the Farm Bill. But I'm
mhm.
sure that there are a lot of options for that. So definitely something to look into.
Yeah, I gotta get better at looking for grants and things like that. It's not one of my specialties at all. Like I've tried looking into it, and then they're like so weirdly worded, half of them, and it's like I don't know, not my cup of tea. I'm trying though,
Enough. Fair enough.
because a grant would be nice. So
Yeah.
what's next
What is next for Cana Collective?
for Canna Collective, for Danyka, for hemp?
Girl, I mean, I wish Hemp would tell me her sweet secret so that we'd get the get up on the hemp and grants. Cana Collective, we're focusing on spring right now. We are going to be focusing on our consulting company where we're implementing our sweet hemp greenhouses. We're really excited and we're learning a lot about that and like more about sequestering like per block. So that's going to be really, really cool to be able to kind of talk about that in Southern Ontario. And still like same thing, you know, networking with awesome individuals like yourself, seeing what you guys are up to south of the border, waiting for our world to not be so unforgiving about traveling so we can all meet in person and share those ideas. And Danyka is just loving the farm and the dogs and working. That's all I do. So, what's next for Adam?
Shit. Well, I'm trying to buy land and a house personally, like
Nice.
for me and the family, and then this NFT project it's basically become a business on its own, which is kind of complicated because I have the CBD thing going. I also have basically what has turned into an environmental research company at this point. It was like, oh, we're gonna fight or remediate. Now it's like, no, we're just looking at all aspects of it. Like, and hemp isn't the only thing we're using, so we don't have to be a hemp company. You know what I mean? Like maybe avoid some loopholes and shit like that, or get a
Mhm.
loophole to avoid some shit. Um, so yeah, spending a lot of time on that, and then I'm actually releasing a music NFT project in April.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I have no clue the details of that NFT project. Well, not no clue, but like only like 40% of the ideas together. So I got to get how I want to drop it, and then kind of work backwards from there. And I have all the songs done, so like that's the most important part. Make sure the music's done so it's ready to go out. And now that the music's done, I can kind of work on some of my ideas. Like I really want to have somebody make an animated version of me, and then create animated films basically for like my music videos, like little 5-minute stories that have the song in them and stuff. So I'm trying to do something really, really, really creative. And yeah, my goal is to raise money to go on tour, because it's like the only thing I never got to do in my music career. And if I toured, I would feel completely and utterly at peace with my music career if it never did anything again after that. Like I'd feel like I did it. Like I did enough. I did way more than I would have ever imagined I would do with music. So that would be like the cherry on top. It would just be like boop.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and
Love
so
the move.
lots of shit going on, and I'm getting my taxes all together finally, so that's good. And so that's life is about to change crazy in 2022. Like I've been seeing 222 everywhere and
Yeah.
trying to figure out what it means. And I feel like it means a few things, but I do feel like it's telling me something about next year. And I've literally done everything to humble myself to Nika. Like I'm working a fucking full-time job again. I do not want to be doing that, but I have to. You got to provide for the family, get the house and everything, get out of the fucking in-laws. I literally like got rid of my brand new car because it was costing me too much monthly, and I have a little shit box I bought for $2,000, and like I've just completely and utterly humbled myself, and I'm so ready for like the next step forward. And I
Nice.
feel like I've laid all the groundwork pretty much everywhere, like along all my business, the NFT, my personal life, and now, like monetarily. So I feel like next year is going to be a good year, really good year.
That's honest. That's incredible. I mean, stressful for sure, but you're making all the moves. So there's going to be a lot up with what did Adam say in the next few months, I see.
Yeah, and trying to like have a presence online and keep up with all that
Mhm.
shit too. Like it's hard, and some days I have a harder time balancing it than others. Like today, like I got up at 7, I worked out, ate breakfast, got ready for work, went to work 9:30 to 8, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then rushed out at 8 p.m. Came home. You saw like I was hanging with my daughter for what 8 to 10 minutes. She went to bed and we started the show.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
grind don't stop. And after this, I gotta I have something to do. I can't remember what it was now. I'll
Have you
figure it
worked?
out after. I have it
Yeah.
in my to-do list, but yeah, there's still more work to be done after this even. So it's just it doesn't stop, but you have to learn to be
Just me,
grateful that you're
well, and that's it, right? But the important thing is that we love what we do because once I get off this shortly, I have to go back to. I get it, but your daughter is so cute, by the way. So I was very
like,
grateful to see that, and I'm glad that you at least got 10 minutes with her before she went to bed.
literally, yeah. She woke up this morning, and I literally, she was waking up right as I was leaving, so I got to give her a hug and kiss bye, and then that time I just spent with her. That's it. So some
Um,
days are like that, and it's been 4 days in a row basically of that now. So she's
yeah,
like, she starts getting like upset towards like she like this morning if she wasn't distracted by TV, she wouldn't have let me leave. She probably would have just hugged me. No, no, no. And it's like so hard because I'm like trying to explain to my boss, like, hey, sorry, I'm late all the time. My daughter just isn't used to me leaving the house this long all day. Like I usually work at home for a lot of the day, and I make sure I'm
yeah,
home for dinner and like. So it's been a big change for her for sure. But she's a little warrior princess, so you know.
she is so sweet. She is so so sweet.
Yeah, that's my
Oh my
baby.
god. I completely get it, but you know what? This is here we grow. All of the good things about the industry, which I guess in counter or rather like respectively, it is annoying that we don't get a lot of time to like when people are like, oh well, like you work from home, you should be able to do that. No, we're building an industry, and we will take the sweet small moments with our loved ones that we can, and then
Mm.
hopefully. But the thing is about our industry, I don't think any of us will ever retire. I think we'll just find something new and fun and exciting that we need to do, but we'll just have a little bit more flexibility and timing, hopefully.
Yeah, like my idea of retiring will be spending months on end searching the forest for fucking wild grown hemp. Like
We love that. There we go.
so my last question for you, Danica. Are you
Yeah.
gonna have data for the contest this year?
Yeah,
Cool. Good, good.
absolutely. I
I've been
already have.
seeing all
Oh, sorry, you first.
I was seeing them. They've been sending me a lot of emails lately about the milestone submission, like because they're giving away $1 million to 15 teams.
Yeah.
So i'm I'm like working on the essay portion essentially of it because they want like a whole fucking proposal of like what you're gonna do. So it's pretty intense, and any way I can help you with that, just let me know because
Oh my
I
gosh.
guess.
I mean, yeah, I will meet you in the middle because we're in it to win it on that one. We're
Are you doing the webinar? I mean, not the webinar. They're doing like an online meet. I think it's on like the 13th or something like that.
um of
Check your
this.
email. You'll see some
I
details from
will,
X
yeah,
Prize.
I will. Yeah, I would love to do that actually. So
Yeah.
here's
So, hmm?
said here's hoping.
Yeah, yeah. It would be crazy because, oh man, I can't wait to meet other people that could like possibly we could all help each other and have a
So
better chance of winning.
you are going to love the custom farmer that I work with now, who is up to all of these like good crunching numbers because I have 14 other projects on my desk, and it's really, really cool that we're all, you know what I mean, like kind of working in this together. So yeah, we should set up a call off your sweet, sweet podcast
Yeah,
and talk
hell
about
yeah.
that. He's really incredible and good at that.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him. I definitely want to. I love
Yeah.
talking to like any farmer that's doing what we're doing because you
He's
learn so
actually
much.
I will not say this often, but my jam isn't necessarily driving equipment. It's more of like the business aspect of that and knowing like
Hmm.
and understanding what that looks like. So it was really cool to meet an organic custom farmer who knows exactly what hemp, like what custom machinery is required for hemp and all of that good stuff. So
Yeah,
we're
um,
excited.
the future is beyond exciting. Um,
Absolutely.
so
Do
for
you have any
anybody
more
what
questions for me?
no, I mean I could keep talking to you all night. You know this. We every time we talk, it's
Oh my
hours at a time.
hours. Yes, but
Hours.
4 hours. All the
It's
help.
yeah, it's really cool. Thank you, Ellen.
Mhm.
Every time we talk, it's like, "Thank you, Ellen, for introducing," and she's another one that just needs to be brought onto all this that what we're doing with this carbon stuff, and I'm sure she is on your side. She's such an amazing human being. I miss her.
Love everything about that.
So yeah, for everybody listening and watching after the fact too, where can people find you?
People can find me on, Facebook, Danyka Dunseith, Instagram, cannacollective.inc. And then otherwise, yeah, just cannacollective.inc at gmail.com with any questions or any future projects, you know what I mean? If we know anybody that can help, I'm super happy to broker and go over what they're up to.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely need to talk more about the carbon stuff, and I'll definitely be
Yes,
in touch
I would
soon.
actually like to do a second segment on that one specifically because there's so much that we didn't touch on. But then the other thing is you need to send me like where can my Canadian followers find you and like your music and what you're up to and your podcast and all that good stuff.
I mean, it's pretty much what did Adam say everywhere at this point.
Okay.
Like I've kind of like made it just branded across everything. Like if you look it up on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit,
Nice.
uh,
All of
um,
those platforms. It's just what did Adam say?
yeah, it's like
Perfect.
one of my best marketing things I've ever come up with by accident
I
in a
think that's
stone moment.
incredible. That's super easy to remember. So if anybody does not remember, then I'm sad for them.
Yeah, people ask for a business card. I'm like, oh, just look me up. What did Adam say? You'll find me. And
Yeah,
like I'd say like 75% of the time they do it.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hell
Sure.
yeah, Danica. I'll have to get you scheduled again next year because I always love talking to you on the podcast, and we'll have to go
All the
super
good
heavy on
stuff.
carbon. And
Yes.
yeah, so I'll definitely be talking to you soon. And for everybody listening and watching, thank you so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any content. We're live every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Podcast comes out Saturday at midnight. So please enjoy. And if you did enjoy, leave us a review. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Good vibes to you.